Now joined by Josh Neighbors, host of the Big 12 Watch on our sister station channel. I don't know, it's YouTube, newfangled words for the new millennia. But Crystal Ball College Football. So please go watch his show. Subscribe to that channel. Josh, you're rocking a Virginia Tech shirt today?
I am, yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Are you I know you're from Virginia. Are you a Virginia Tech guy?
Growing up, yes. My dad grew up going to games. Okay. My grandparents had season tickets for 45 years. My best friend growing up, a Virginia Tech fan. So I guess like now I'm technically a Missouri guy because that's where I graduated from. Yeah. But I still keep up with Tech football. I mean, about as close as I do, with any non-Big 12 school. I have some
A&M shirts from my dad, like that, that I still gone to A&M games and worn maroon, with friends and all that. So I get
people at the gym who see me every day have no idea what school I like because I wear Virginia Tech, I wear Missouri, but I've got all of the Big 12 schools as well. I wear those often to work out. So I confuse a lot of people with my wardrobe choices every day with schools.
You just tell them I was an assistant coach. I get fired a lot.
That's true.
Let me tell you a story about Virginia Tech. So in 99, and this is, of course, in 2000. So right after Y2K, we survived that ordeal. I and some of my coworkers drove to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl, the national championship game. That FSU won. And I was 19, almost 20. And in New Orleans, that doesn't matter. They're not going to ask you for an ID. Like, that's not a thing that they do in that city. They know what they're built on. So voodoo and booze, like that's what they are. And so I very quickly, when I found that out, because I was meeting some friends in the French Quarter anyway, I very quickly just tore through. It was my first trip there. Like every, not only just Cajun food, but every kind of hurricane or beer, whatever I could get my hands on. So within 2 hours of being in the French Quarter, I was sauced up. I mean, just ready to rock. And there were, the whole French Quarter is either Virginia Tech fans or FSU fans, just all over the place before the day of the game. And in the middle of Bourbon Street, the Hokie fans start doing the hokey pokey. And I thought, is there something in one of these drinks I had? Because I thought I had lost my mind. But it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
They don't do the hokey pokey as much anymore.
No.
I think it's more of the let's go Hokies thing you get a whole lot of. But I'll tell you what, those two fan bases in New Orleans, I can't imagine. That was probably some trouble.
Just here's the deal. Just mere hours after Sebastian Janikowski went to bed that night.
Right. That is exactly right. What a game, too. That was a great game.
Yeah, it was. And I remember, after the game, they asked Bobby Bowden to be like, hey, if you've ever covered the Sugar Bowl, you will see people out at night, and, the media's all out, hanging out late because you're in New Orleans, and if there's a player, you're going to notice them. And, everybody in the media saw Sebastian Janikowski out on Bourbon Street, and they asked Bobby Bowden, would he get in after curfew? And Bobby's like, huh, what? Huh? I'm
no
old.
idea. Well,
I'm an old man. I don't know.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
I'm old. He pulled the Uncle Leo. I don't know. Stealing batteries. I don't know. So anyway, Big 12 this week. Not as many. They're not the premier matchups last week, but this is where, to me, it gets interesting because this is where you can pucker up a little bit, right? And get nervous and lose something that you shouldn't, because now you are mere weeks away from the goal of making it to Arlington. And Oklahoma State really shouldn't have that problem on the way out. But Texas, for the next 3 weeks, even though they're playing teams that have all, except for but two of the three teams have had, bummers of a season, they're still got gigantic targets on them because they're huge in-state rivals. And that starts this week with TCU, who would love nothing more than to just do one thing right and beat Texas.
And they've been very good at that. The first thing I want to note with this week's Big 12 schedule is it's very representative of what Big 12 schedules will look like in the future. You've got games from 11 a.m. all the way up until 9 p.m. Central Time, right? You've got Fox covered, you've got Fox Sports 1, you've got ESPN, you've got ABC, you've got ESPN Plus. I mean, they really have it all covered. All the time slots, all the windows, all the different ways to watch games, whether it's linear cable, streaming, also the big networks, the support networks, whatever. And so I think about that. Think about, okay, like this is a good reminder of why the television networks wanted the Big 12. Because also, too, that first window last week, Paul, I mean, we had 4 games decided by a total of 9 points, 2 of which went to overtime.
Yeah.
And 2 were decided in the very final play of the game, obviously, as well. So that was super exciting to see that, to have that. And this week, too, obviously lends itself. And yeah, I mean, it's so funny. We had last week a 5-way tie in first. And because of all the good matchups we had last week, that's dissipated. And because Kansas took care of Iowa State on the road, that number went from 5 to 2, right? And now the logjam is actually in second place. And now we're looking up at Oklahoma State and Texas. And now it's kind of the tightrope back, right? And it feels like there is no massive game left on the schedule for either of those two. They should be, I believe should be is the operative word here. They should be favorites in all the remaining games they will play. In Texas' case, I would have to think that they're going to be a double-digit favorite in the rest of the games they play this year. So now it is the pressure is on, right? The heat is on. The kind of the two have risen up there, and now we're going to see. In Texas's case, TCU's had a ton of success against them. You wonder, hey, is Chandler Morris going to play a role this week? And it would be very, very TCU. I think there is a lot kind of for TCU like here. Like this needs to at least be a performance where you show us that like there is still maybe money left in the banana stand in some ways. I think for this, as far as this season goes, right? Because this has been a really disappointing season, but beyond that, like it's been an extremely disappointing season considering what's happened before. So a win against Texas changes a lot of that. Obviously, Iowa State's going to be hunting for that win, and then Texas Tech, we all know too, and we'll see if they can round into form. And for Oklahoma State, you get 2 of the new 3 in your next couple of games, both on the road. I forget who they have the last week of the season. Is it Baylor the last week?
Oklahoma State has 3 of the new 4. They have UCF, right, Houston, and BYU.
Right. So yeah. There you go. I mean, they get, that's a pretty nice way to go. And so the pressure's on. I mean, that's kind of the big story here. I think from a general standpoint. For
TCU, they are staring bowl elimination in the face because 2 of their last 3 are Texas and Oklahoma. And, they have Baylor next week. And look, Baylor on good years has trouble beating TCU. So, they hope that holds to form, but they've got to win 2 of their last 3 or they're not bowl eligible. And that after the greatest season in school history will sting a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the talent left in the team too. Like there's still enough guys left in last year's team that it should not be like this. And I'm worried for them this week too, because nobody, and I mean this, nobody, like there's one person, Dylan Gabriel, nobody's run the ball in Texas. Like nobody has lined up and punched them in the mouth. I don't really think Oklahoma did that much. And that game is weird. Like you have to throw that game out because it always is super. I mean, like there were block punts and there was, like illegal formations on punts and just ridiculous things happening. Right. So if you look at the season and say who has lined the ball up, lined up against Texas and punched them in the mouth and ran the football against them, nobody has. And TC, I mean, that's the hallmark of a Kendall Briles offense. I don't have to tell the folks in the Baylor community that they want to run the ball. That's kind of the number one thing they want to do. They want to run the ball. They want to spread you out. They want to run to the outside. They want to run inside. Like it's pretty simplistic the way they want to. And they couldn't even do it against Texas Tech. Monty Bailey's had a big season and he was really held in check against Texas Tech. I mean, it was the passing offense that did it for him. And look, that's where Texas can be hurt. And I actually think Josh Hoover's going to end up being, wherever he is, pretty decent. I think he looks like a guy right now who probably shouldn't be starting the Power 5, but most guys shouldn't be when they're freshmen, right? Most guys shouldn't be doing it. And I know they were concerned about that backup situation, and it's come to fruition here, sure. But he threw a couple horrific picks against Texas Tech. But they were still in the game, right? They were still in the game at the very end on the road. They should be, but like they were still there. So I just think I watched them last week, and it's like if you can't run the ball and nobody has, it's a problem. And Josh Hoover will make enough mistakes on his own volition, especially now that we know Quinn Ewers is coming back. And I think that's one big thing. Like it seems like Malik Murphy was good for about 2 horrific mistakes a game.
Yeah.
Quinn Ewers maybe sometimes 1. Right. And, he is kind of that's the operator you want for the offense. I mean, I think there was a pretty clear difference between Malik Murphy. I know he was as good as he was to start off the game. I think that offense hums a bit better with Quinn Ewers kind of pillar to post.
Yeah.
So I'm worried for them.
Yeah. That's why I was surprised last week that Kansas State, like, I know why you do it. Like the book tells you on the road, go for it, right? Just end the game. Don't get into this.
That was a bad call.
Bad call. And the reason, like, usually you do it because, like, Dana Holgorsen made a great call when he did it, like, but a completely different situation.
Right.
What I think that Chris Kleiman maybe missed on was let's see if what happens when you put Malik Murphy in the situation of don't mess up. Don't mess up. Right. We've kind of turned this on you. Don't mess up, Malik. Get into a freshman's head a little bit. I think he didn't do that. That's what I would have seen. I would have made Malik Murphy, like, I would have made him beat me in that pressure situation.
Right, because you're totally right. Because at that point, you keep handing him the ball. That's what you're functionally doing. Is like, all right, and also too, it's 4th down. Like, so you haven't scored at that point. Yeah. And for me, I understand why you do it, but in that situation, when as the game has gone along longer, you've been better off, right? This is not some situation where, you were up big and Texas came alive and it's like, all right, the longer this game goes, we're in worse shape. It was like, no, the longer the game went, they started making mistakes. And their advantage in terms of physicality dissipated because K-State's offense started to find a rhythm there later on in the game. Mm-hmm. And so I know you didn't score there, but that's like not – I would wait to land the knockout blow. I bet Sark kind of took a long breath and was like, all right, thank God they tried to end the game there because I don't want to keep chucking our young quarterback out here. I want to keep him near the script as much as possible. So that was, I think, very fortunate for Texas. But I'll tell you what, Paul, Texas is surviving now in games that they would have lost last year. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is what is really encouraging for them as a program, right? We saw them blow that lead against Tech last season. That Houston game was a blown lead, but guess what? I know they got helped by a call, but like when the defense had to step up and make a stop, they did. When they had to run the ball down Houston's throat to get the go-ahead score, they did. So they're starting to do these things, and look, do you want to be surviving like this all the time? No, but I would contend too that like it's pretty good for them to feel some pressure in these situations. And the fact they overcame their mistakes last week is a good building block.
Yeah, I would say it's probably not a good trend if you're heading into the college football playoff, which right now they're not, Yes, so where you'd have to win the thing, you've got to beat 2 teams who probably don't do that as often as you have. But again, part of it is growing up, right? Texas was never had to be a real boy under all these other things. Like they were always like, they just couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And then here they are now, they're doing it. So while this might not be the year that maybe they win the national title, like I think everybody was hoping, they're close. And so now you build on that and you hope you can keep as much talent together and then replenish it because the transfer portal giveth, the transfer portal taketh away. And that's not only guys you lose to the transfer portal, but, if there's a guy who's a difference maker between you and another team in the SEC and he picks them over you, which is going to happen to Texas more often than when they were in the Big 12, those are the things that will swing, playoff runs for them. But they're at least doing the little things well now, which before the little things were just either, they were death by 1,000 paper cuts all the time.
Yeah. And also, so if I think about them in terms of everybody else, here's a problem for everybody else in the Big 12 right now, at least this season. The controlling the line of scrimmage is like actually what normally ends up winning this league. It has in the last few seasons for the most part. Texas is so good up front. I mean, those early recruiting classes that Sark put all of his effort into, they were all concentrated on the lines of scrimmage. And that's paying off now. like nobody can run the ball against them. It's just, I mean, I would be surprised, like maybe Michigan could, maybe Georgia could, but like they're so good up front that's why when I think about them, Paul, and I think about them playing, let's just exclude Michigan and Georgia. If you were to have them play in Oregon, right? If you were to have them play, I think Washington's probably a bad matchup for them because Washington tosses the ball around a lot, right? That might be an error. But like they could run the ball all over Washington if they wanted to.
Yeah.
I think about Florida State too. I think they're right there with those teams.
Yeah. No, I agree with
I
you.
think that I don't think Florida State's gotten a lot better as the season's gone along. I'm not saying Texas has gotten a lot better too, but like has Florida State gotten markedly better as things go along? I still think Texas is probably one of the 6 best teams in the country. And so if they win out, Michigan's going to have to play Ohio State. So, right. So we're going to get a loser there. We're heading towards Oregon and Washington round 2, which, we'll see what that yields, obviously. And so like they have a really good chance of being a 1-loss conference champion, with the 1 loss being to Oklahoma in a rivalry game and a really, I mean, about as narrow of a margin as possible. And I would like Texas's chances to get in if that is the case.
Look, if they're within, like if those things happen, if they get cleared out, like that's what they need right now is win and help. But if they get the help, like, yeah, they're
help's going to play each other though, right? I mean, the help all has to play each other. Right? Georgia's got to play Bama, that's behind them, and they already have the win over Bama, so that takes care of that. Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State will sort themselves out, we believe, and Oregon and Washington have some sorting to do. So you're kind of, I mean, just 1 week at a time if you're the Texas Longhorns, and I think they might end up where they want to be, and that's kind of on the doorstep of the CFP.
Yeah. On Florida State, as someone who's watched every one of the games, I would push back a little. They haven't gotten better. I don't think they've gotten better on offense. I think they're very consistent on offense.
What I agree with that.
But I do think they've gotten better on defense. I think
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think they've gotten better on defense. But yeah, no offense. That like sometimes you don't need like. They're good at it. I mean, like, like how much more can you like? Believe me, I wish
they're not healthy too. They've been banged out.
Yeah, I want them to score 70 points in the first quarter. That way, I can relax. But I know it's not high school ball, so the clock moves faster.
Well, the Pitt game it wasn't like wire to wire dominance. And look, that Clemson win was a really good win early in the season. I think that at that point, it's kind of like, all right, if you stay healthy at this point, we should just probably see you in the ACC championship game, and we can see if that's competitive or not, whoever they have to play. So, yeah, I think FSU is in a pretty good spot as long as they're healthy.
Yeah, Louisville or North Carolina, depending on how Miami fares against Louisville next week. But so that's it. It's going to be different for them. All right, let's talk about Texas Tech and Kansas. The Tech with Bear Morton's different on offense, obviously, but Kansas is they're just good. I mean, like, it's hard to even say it, but they're just good. And now they figured out different ways to win games than we better score 50 points. And then, hope that we're ahead where the other team's offense has to chuck it around and we can make a big play. Like, they are not by any means, stumping people on defense, but they're also able to make plays on that side of the ball in key moments. They've gotten so much better over there.
Yeah, the Oklahoma game was a big story with this because it was like that game should have been over, and they gave Jason Bean and company one more chance, and they went right down the field and they scored a touchdown on them, and they got the stop in the end too. And then last week, you have a signature win for your program. And look, say what you want about Oklahoma, but I was at Missouri and Auburn last year. And that was the weird game where Missouri missed a 20-yard field goal and then fumbled in the end zone. And like, I was basically talking about with my friends afterward being like, it's Auburn and they're down. They're down this year, sure, but still beating Auburn is a massive signature win on the road. It's just good for the program, and that's what that was for Oklahoma. It was a landmark for Kansas, landmark victory. You wonder on the road at Jack Trice how it's going to go. They led the entire game. Led the entire game, and I know there's some officiating stuff people complain about, whatever. But like they were hitting explosive passing plays. The rushing attack didn't always work for them, and they were good, man. They were good to go in all 3 phases. The defense played really, really well. I know Iowa State's offense, nothing to write home about, but Kansas is good. The one thing I think I think Vegas is paying attention to this too, is, we saw the body blow effect take them out last year, like really bad down the stretch. That doesn't feel like the situation this year, but I think there is some trepidation about, are they going to, like, is there going to be a November dip? Are they going to be able to keep up the momentum? But they're playing so well as a group, and there's a serious belief, and it's upsetting for them because they've got losses to both Oklahoma State and Kansas. So it's going to be really, really hard for them to get into the Big 12 championship game. But man, they have a legitimate chance at 9-10 wins this year. They have an actual chance at 9 to 10 wins, and that's got to be, I mean, like it is remarkable what Lance. He is unbelievable. He is. I mean, what he has done there, nobody else could do it, and he has gone there and done something that I think. I remember I talked to Jesse Newell, who used to cover them. Yeah. He covers the Chiefs now, and Jesse goes, at 5 wins, they'll build at 5 wins in year 3, they build a statue.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're past that now. We're way past that now. It's impressive.
Look, he's like, I genuinely believe him that he wants to stay there for the rest of his career. Like, he's 58 years old. There is something about something being your program. And in a very short amount of time, he's made it his, because it was nobody's. Like, it was a drift. And so he's made Kansas his program. And if you keep winning at a certain place, you don't have, like, he's 58. Like, how far is he going to climb, really, right? And I would say that the biggest rumor out there is Michigan State. And if you can make similar money at Kansas, then Michigan State, I would not move and work for those bosses, personally. I think that I would let somebody else try to figure out how to keep the Spartans in line, as opposed to me going up there and being the guy who's got to come in and fix things that are far from fixable from the head coach standpoint. Yeah,
and you can win. You can win at Kansas.
Yeah,
and they have an advantage that not every school has. They've got a major metropolitan area within an hour of their school, right? Yeah. I mean, Kansas City produces a lot of good talent. Lee Summit, obviously Kansas City proper, like. Those areas do produce a decent number of talent. St. Louis is about 4 or 5 hours away. It's nice to have another city there too. I mean, like, they are not too far away from decent sources of talent. And for them, they're showing right now that they dusted UCF this year. That game was, out of all of UCF's games against current Big 12 teams, that was like the least competitive of them. They hammered them, and we think UCF's going to end up being pretty good. So I think what Lance Leipold is showing is that you can win in places. And look, will there be some 5-win seasons in there? Probably. Yeah, it's going to happen at some point. They're blessed to have a backup quarterback in Jason Bean, who's as good as he is. And they've done a really good job, maintaining and retaining talent. But Leipold knows how to craft game plans to his team. His big challenge is keeping the guy calling plays on offense with him, because Andy Kotelnicki, to me, should be up for the Broyles Award this year for what he has done. I know the offensive numbers aren't always staggering, but what he has done with that offense and how creative and fun it is to watch, the way they run the football and the way they utilize their athletes, they know how. I mean, you see the way they use Jared Casey, you see the way they use Arnold, they see the way they use Bean and Neal and Highshaw. Like, they are saying, I'm going to get the most out of all of these guys, and they do such a good job of it. And I think that needs to be applauded on a national level. I don't think Kansas actually gets talked about enough, considering it's almost like Kansas last year had more steam than they have this year. But this year is more impressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Talk to you next week, buddy.
Sounds good.
All right, Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch.